This is Simon transparently awakening the heart of humanity as we see beyond the lies and open our eyes to realize
This is our time to rise.
Welcome everybody. So here we are again, and today I'm with a beautiful being. As you all know, I call everyone divine beings, lovers, as opposed to just man, woman, or any other label. So divine being, and this one is called Morgan. Hey, Morgan.
Hello.
And as you all know as well, I don't do no big, elaborate explanations of who is on the call with me today. But this is a new friend who we've come together in the last few months, and there was just a real beautiful synergy that slowly emerged, and a lot of interest the same around truth, transparency, authenticity, playfulness, art,
prosperity,
collaboration, gifting. So there's just been this beautiful, this beautiful resonance. And I felt like some of the things I've heard from Morgan about her story and about her life has been quite fascinating. So I wanted to bring that to you all, and hoping that it can inspire you in some way. So enjoy another transparent conversation as we play through the unexpected. Yes.
Yes. We get to play.
We get to play. So we're both feeling a little tired from not sleeping, let's say, as long as we would have liked.
Yes. And I got this great sinus infection going on. So if I sneeze, it's a blessing to all the people that they're hearing it.
Right. Beautiful. And yeah, I'm feeling quite hot. And also I always have this thing before conversation. There's always a little bit of anxiety, but not anxiety in the sense of fear, but just that more like curiosity, where it might go. Yeah, that always pops up for me. It's kind of a nice feeling. It's a sort of excitable feeling as well, because fear has that vibe, right? So like fear has this sort of sense of, oh yeah, it's quite exciting as well. I think that's
the unknown.
The unknown, exactly. And I love conversation for that reason. So I think, like, why don't we just dive in, or what's like? I mean, I've heard so much about you. I know you can share lots of things, but you know, you recently read my Human Design, which was just, I felt very beautiful, and I love these sort of systems of ways of reading and looking into the human psyche. So I found that fascinating. And also, we must do this, because also when I first met you, you did this little tune-in. Maybe we can even do that, because I to bring the people into the space before you start. But you did this little tune-in in the sharing, and you was like, let me just tune in for a minute with some sound and bring myself into the present moment, which I found really confident and really a beautiful way to just check in with yourself. And I noticed you do that. You use sort of sound to check in with yourself. Yeah. So that's something that I'm fascinated about, and how that sort of came into your being. And then there's all sorts of stuff, you know, you grew up in the ghetto. I mean, like, there's like, you know, you grew up in the ghetto, and now you do human design. You know, there's lots of things to talk about. So so maybe you want to even bring the people in with a little bit of sound and listening?
Yeah, this is great. So I'm going to explain it just a little bit.
Please.
So the reason I use sound personally is as I've been healing and going through what I call my awakening, which is really integrating my humanity and becoming mature and honoring what is there, I couldn't really trust always my mind to tell me what was true. And so what started to happen, because one of my superpowers, and it's even in my human design, is I am really connected to the sound frequencies. And so when I moved out of language and just moved into sound, I could hear my own heart. And then I could also hear other people's hearts. So all of a sudden I was like sitting at dinner tables, hearing literally people would be saying one thing and I could hear another. I'm like, what? I thought I was going insane at first, until I started to check in. I'm like, is this really what's happening over there? And they're like, yes. And it was very strange, you know.
Like the intuition was coming through that.
Yeah, and it's not even like, I feel like I'm in like kind of like a romantic comedy meets what is that? Like a musical. You know, because like they'll be like, hi, how are you? I'm totally afraid right now because I don't really know anyone. And like I hear it like that loud, and it's just like, whoa, okay, can I give you a hug? You know. And then one of the things that I noticed when I sang, both when I tuned into my own heart, it allowed others to tune into their own heart. There was that shared because the intention was there, they could ride off my own sound wave. So that was really cool.
Makes sense. So I hear what I'm hearing is like, it's like this, you're tuning in even to the sound of the heart.
Yeah.
But that's just my little contribution, but it sounds sweet because you haven't actually explained that to me before. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You've just been dropping the sound bites every now and again, and I'm like, okay, cool, this is sweet.
Yeah.
It's unusual, but very beautiful, and that's what I mean when I said I felt this sense of confidence in it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than it just being like some random thing, it's like, oh no, actually, this is her way of really connecting.
Yeah, it's changed everything because I can move from truth of my heart versus the voices in my head, essentially. Yeah. So
cool.
let's drop some sound waves. We're gonna do this one. Let's just do it for the truth of the heart, and to be in the inspiration of sharing our stories. Hey, hey, ho, ho, ho. Hey, hey, ho, 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 ho. Hey, 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 ho, 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 ho. Hey, 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 ho, ho, ho. Hey, 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 hey.
I love that. For anyone listening, if you're not watching the video, the whole energy's changed here, and I became more aware of what's going on with me. Like I could feel I'm sweating, dropping into my body, noticing like, let me just take that pause. So from that pause, what's alive in you?
Love. Love always comes alive. That feeling of anxiety that you talked about before? Sometimes I feel that anxiety when I enter into a new space or a new conversation or something. And it's actually just a little bit of tension. And what happens when I sing is like I just relax and be myself, and like my love opens up. And so that just...
I love that. And just tuning into, I love how you said that when you come into the space and you tune in, like if you was like reading me now and just feeling me a little bit, and you know me a little bit in the last few months, what are you feeling in this space when you look at me at the moment, or you're feeling in, or even, or you may be hearing something in my heart that I can't hear?
Oh, okay. So there's a couple things. So like feeling you is one, like I felt your body relax, right? So we kind of like came to the earth together, moved into our bodies versus our minds. Right. So that was, now all of a sudden we can be really together, which is really great.
You feel that, right? It's palpable.
Yeah.
We've just like, dropped in. Even though we did that little intention and breath, the sound brought us just, go on, carry on.
Yeah, so that feels really good. Like I feel with you now.
Yeah.
And then if you have a rare thing that most of the time when you speak, it's the same thing that's in your heart. This is actually really rare. Most people are unpracticed in being that truthful with themselves, let alone with the people across from them. So I often hear like double energies, right? But for you, I often just hear you. I'm like, oh, and it's actually calming, because the alignment of the field is easier, when we're all in truth. So that's really wonderful. And I could tell you, like, if you were to just make gibberish at me, I could say what's happening in your, like, depending on like where you're at, like what's happening in your body, what's happening in your heart, what's happening like in your system, which is fun.
That's super fun. And I want to share that just for people listening, because they might be like, oh, if you share gibberish at me. But it was really beautiful when we were having our reading, and you just checked in with Dara first. And it was just, again, give me a sound rather than talk and head, because often it's coming from the head, right? Like you said, just give me a sound, what's going on. And even when you asked me to that, at first I was like, oh, this is kind of nervous, right? I was nervous, what do I do? And of course, it's that thing when we check in and go, what do I do? That blocks just the freedom of what it is, right?
Yeah.
So if it's like, just make a sound, you know, whatever that sound is, then we can trust that that's just the spontaneous authenticity of that moment,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And then you are able to read that. And I remember you saying to me at one point when I was doing some sound that there was almost like, no, you're giving me a little bit, but you're being quite stubborn, right? Or
Yeah.
there's like, you don't want to give it me, or you're like, oh yeah, whatever. Because in that moment as well, I was doubting, like, what am I doing? Like, you know?
Yeah.
And you noticed that as it
Yeah.
came out, and you and I love that. You said, "Well, he's giving me a little bit. I'm gonna take that anyway." But that actually, again, that gave me confidence that you was really hearing the sound and
Yeah.
allowing that to tap into however you engage with what's coming through you. Yeah, because intuition, psychic ability, the ability to feel people. Yeah. Empaths. You know, our beautiful cameraman watching. You know, Eric is. You know, he talks a lot about empaths and feeling, and you know, he's intuitive himself, and we all have that capacity on some level. But I always see it as really trusting the unknown of what's coming through.
Yeah.
And that takes real practice and trust within yourself.
Yeah, and a little bit of magic. You know, like
magic.
You have to have that side of your childlike wonder that like still believes in magic a little bit. Because if it's in the unknown, if it's beyond logic, if it's beyond like things that other people could tell you are real,
right,
you kind of have to be in your wondrous self.
Right.
You know?
And you have to be in your childlike self, which is actually, whenever I look at you, I see that as well. No, really, I see you so playful, so childlike, yet, you know, there's a depth of wisdom and lived experience, right?
Yeah.
And that really makes up a beautiful mix. And it just reminded me, we don't have to talk too much about this, but I want to say to people listening is that when we were on a retreat together, we were asked to go out and channel nature, right?
Yeah.
We were asked to go out and connect to a plant or a tree and allow it to communicate through us. And that was really, I hadn't done that before in that way. And that really connected me to that childlike playfulness again. And I created this, one of these trees was rustling. You know, I think you might remember, I might have told you after, or Dara told you. And his name was Russell, you know, because it had this like vibe. And Dara was laughing because it had this sort of reggae voice, and just, you know, it was just like, hey, you know, you need to come out and hang out with us more often. You know, we had this whole vibe going on with this tree called Russell.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. And after we felt, Dara said, we have to do this with Maya, right? And again, it's this rehabilitation of imagination.
Yes.
Right? That's what's been coming up for me recently. The rehabilitation of imagination. How can we really get back into that playful, imaginative space?
I love imagination, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I can eat a strawberry and taste it. That's not in the physical reality. You know, like my imagination is so palpable that I can experience anything here as now. And that has been really great, but also like in a consciousness explorer, you know, if you can experience anything as real now, how do you like come to the ground, right? And be really here with people as well as be cultivating this imagination space. Because one of the things I learned for me specifically is like the imagination is this beautiful realm of wonder, and it needs to be played in and honored and sacred. And you got to tether it with the truth. You know, you got to tether it with the connection to the people around us, because we can either use it to escape, or we can use it to create, or we can use it to connect, or we can use it to explore, to entertain, to whatever we want.
Right.
And as we do that, right, as we engage in our innocent child, we also have to be our mature adult taking care of the innocent child. And when we do that, then the expansiveness is actually available. Like, whoa. You know, for me, my partner found me, I call it riding on unicorns. So like I was in a deeply shamanic space and imaginative space, like another world, another dimension. I had not really wanted to use words for almost a month. So imagine I'm just in the feeling space and I'm not really tethered to the mechanics of this reality, and I can feel all the dimensions, right? And one of the things that happened though, because I didn't connect here, is I lost like a little bit of like what's real.
Right.
You know, and so I had to have another person who was willing to play with me, who also bring me down. And then we got to do this, basically like what I call the tempering of truth, you know, and the truth loves actually the unknown. And when they become best friends, that's where our real magic opens up. The truth and the imagination and wonder. But one without the other, you're kind of like too serious or riding unicorns. And
Right.
yeah.
And when you use the word truth and you say merging the truth, how do you define that in your way?
Yeah. So that's a really good question because most people don't have the same definition of truth. So I've been on an evolution of truth. So now my truth is like what lives inside of me, and telling what it feels like, and just sharing the realness of the experience.
Yeah. Right there, whatever's going on in your body temple.
Yeah, in my body temple. And I kind of separate it from the story. The story is a necessary component to go on a journey to gather the wisdom of learned experience. But my truth is more, I'm afraid.
Right.
Like that's the truth.
Yeah.
My story about it is the story about it. But like I'm actually afraid. Or so one of the things I just realized is I'm a runner.
A runner?
I'm a runner.
What does that mean?
My coping mechanism is like I get triggered and I'm running.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I was like that too. It's still there a bit, but Dara sort of reined me in from that.
Right. Modestus did the same thing. So like, and it will be funny because I'll be like looking and my energy will be, woo, He's like, where'd you go? And I'm like, what? How did you notice? Because like I learned how to keep my body in one place, but energetically I was still running.
Right.
Yeah. And so how do you,
So you checked out basically.
Yeah, checked out. And then I become this like aloof owl kind of energy. And so the telling the truth is like when I get to that running moment, I get triggered and I'm like, I want to run and I'm sweating and it's taking everything I have to stay right here, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, then you can be met in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other piece of truth is like for me in relationship, being able to tell someone the truth of my experience of them, right? I think that's core for us to get accurate feedback. Me and Modestus have like such a great tempering relationship because we give accurate feedback. And it's not from like, I need to get you somewhere for you to learn something, but like, this is just my experience and it's having an impact on me. And so the other side of truth is not just truth of my experience, but being able to tell someone they've impacted me,
And how they have. Not
Yeah.
to, like you said, not to make a story or blame them, but just this is how I feel from that.
Yeah. Like you're participating in doubt and that doubt is undermining, it actually feels like it's undermining my stability. Is that accurate?
Right. Yeah, so you're having this like very transparent feedback loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which can be confronting because all of a sudden nothing's hidden,
Right.
and like there's no pretty outfits on anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And the other day I was listening to somebody talk because, I'm passionate about transparency. It's something that I feel that transparency is misunderstood because that word, again, we play on words and words mean different things. But transparency, often people think it's brutality. Like I'm just going to tell people what I think about them. But that's not what transparency is about. Transparency is actually an inside job.
Yes.
It's actually what's going on inside of me and how am I holding and feeling and can I express from what's going on inside of me, not what is going on outside. And I don't get that right. Dara picks me up all the time. Sometimes I tell her what I'm feeling. She says that's not a feeling because we practice on feelings, right? Communicating real feelings. Or I say, well, what you're doing is no, that's what I'm doing. What's going on inside of you, So we have this sharp feedback loop, which is amazing. And the other day I wanted to mention that this guy who's written a book about radical honesty was speaking about these 3 points. Like what is it to be radically honest? Well, we have these 3 points of reference, right? And I think what you just said is key. We have the body, right? What's actually going on right now in the body? How can I articulate that and get good at articulating what's really happening? Then we have, of course, what's running around. Well, we call it in our head, but depending on where you look nowadays, the mind is not just in the head. It's sort of like, the collective, but you're picking up these thought forms, these stories that are going on in the head. And then, of course, you have what you're seeing literally in your, if you're not blind, of course, you have what you're seeing in your peripherals. So if you constantly come back to those 3 points and communicate with any of those, you're being as clear or as honest or as direct as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let there be some contradiction.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
that's the core to truth, because I think people want truth to be like a fact, like something that's unwavering, unmoving. And really truth is an experience in the moment, and there's like multiple layers to that experience, and so it makes it really hard for us to share sometimes, because we're like, all right, my mind is saying you're terrible, I shouldn't trust you, these are all the patterns and the projections, and then my body's saying, hey, maybe you can just breathe. Like maybe nothing's wrong. And then like what you're seeing is just someone smiling at you, you know, and then you're like, I'm confused, you know, and like, can we say that we're confused, you know?
Yeah.
And then to actually talk about the contradictions. I once wrote a poem about truth, and basically it was like, I'm hunting down truth, I'm trying to find her, I'm trying to have a relationship, and then I shot her right through the head and placed her on my mantle, and then I realized like truth's gone, you know.
I'm just watching that. I'm watching that visual.
Yeah. And so I use, like, as a child, I went through a lot of trauma, so I became very good at pattern recognizing. So like when somebody moves their body a certain way, when their tones change, when like, and they, yeah. So I and I have a really, really good recall of everything. So patterns, all this stuff, and high emotions. So that means like my memory is very, very strong. I see things, I feel them, constantly pattern recognizing. So in business, I used to be the person in the meeting going, oh, okay, going through a divorce, needs to make money, can't tell the truth about the deal, their business is in debt, right? And I would pick it up from little, like, because people always...
Oh, you mean that was how you'd pick up from the patterning of how they're communicating, what they're really saying behind what they're saying.
Yeah, and like now that I know, I can hear their heart too, which is really helpful. But then I was all in the mind and watching. Okay, so they said these 4 things, this, and they lied, and they did this. And then I would go, okay, so you're not being truthful in your negotiations, we're going to have to step away, right? And so it was really fascinating, you know, then to move into, instead of hunting down truth in the outside, like trying to get people to be truth or get them to align, because it was really frustrating.
You're getting them to align to a truth that you think is the truth as well, right?
Yeah. Or even like, just like, people are so contradictory, you know, like they can be very inspiring while being in deep pain, while being, you know, and like they're not allowed to be all that. So then we don't trust them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Contradictory in terms.
Yeah. And we inherently distrust anything that's not the truth. And why partial truths work pretty well is because they make us feel a little more comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. There's a lot there. So I'm hearing, so the contradictory of truth, and of course everybody has their own, you know, their own expression of that, which sometimes their expression of what they even believe to be true in that moment is true for them, but they might not even be able to see that there's another layer of depth or truth for them, right? Because truth is also that. And then I'm hearing that there's a sense of, we feel, I just like how it ended there, is that we feel comfortable when we hear truth, right? We all, what was coming up as you were speaking is that we all know that truth in itself expresses itself almost without words as well. Yeah. So, you know, when somebody, or simultaneously, when somebody says something that's really true, I get this sort of instant hairs on end. Something goes in me. Not every single time, but you know, when we've carved through a lot and somebody just says something, you just feel it. It's a real felt experience, truth. Yeah. And I feel that in the world, there's so many, we spoke a little bit about this yesterday, but there's so many layers of, you know, neurosis, if you want to call it, or psychosis, where, you know, the masks are on and we're sort of just going about our day-to-day business, right? We're showing up and work in our relationships with our children. And we just have these, you know, these filters and these layers on. And I have always been interested, it's what you said earlier, is the reason why I'm, I guess, on one level, I'm passionate about transparency or this yearning for truth, is because we all feel the same in that space, right? On Naked Retreat, or whenever I'm with my friends, or we just drop in to really share what you just described, what's really going on, we can really relate at that moment. You know, I love it when, you know, even me, you know, I hold armor up, I have armor on at times, and when that drops away and you just see the truth, you just see a little boy. You just see little Simon, you know, in there. Because that's the, you know, the truthful aspect. And it's the same for anybody else. When they start to share what's really going on, a softening literally takes place in their face, right? Yeah. I call it sometimes, it's like after having a really beautiful lovemaking session, you know, and you sort of see people. as they really are, in
Yeah.
that like soft, loving place. Because all of a sudden, what they're holding on to, the armor has fallen away. So maybe that will lead us into, because you mentioned the word there, trauma, and how as you mentioned the word trauma and having your own experiences of that. I'd love for everyone listening today to if they can, tune into a compassionate state of being, that when we look out at another human, we always often judge them, of how we see them in their clothing, how they're showing up. And it's really difficult sometimes to realize that we're so unique and we've all had our own layer of trauma, own levels of trauma. And Jeff Brown says it as that we're all trauma survivors in one way or another.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you feel comfortable just to share a little bit about how, some of the things you've overcome in your life to really just to be here today, supporting people to be more authentic.
Yeah, amazing. So I want to kind of seed it at the beginning and then
Please.
tell about myself. So, there's interesting ways to participate with each other that very, very much undermine our capacity to connect and feel love. Truth is like one of those bridges that allow us to connect and feel love because it opens up trust. And when we have trust, we can open up more love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden the energy, we get nourished, we get soft because we're full,
Right.
Our
needs are met in that place.
They're totally met. And another way is to participate through really seeing people, right? So getting rid of the mask, getting rid of the projections of who you think they are, what you think they are, and even trying to understand, rip them apart, judge them as good or bad, or this is what is happening. I call it like participating with cynicism, when you look at things from breaking things apart versus just really seeing, right? So I seed it with those three kind of energies. And then my trauma, most recently, I'll call it my last 7 years, was really about healing my sexuality, healing my mind, my brain, healing my capacity to love myself. And because I had gone through such an extreme story, I'm very happy, I'm really happy. I could just be happy. I'm like, great. Shit happens. Grew up in the ghetto, got raped, got beaten, got molested, dated a terrible guy, got mold, almost died, best friend died.
Got mold poisoning.
Mold poisoning, yeah.
Not just got mold.
Yeah.
Got mold.
Got mold poisoning.
No, she got mold poisoning for a long time.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah. So there's like all these things, like there's like they do often like the list of like how much trauma can you take before you break. Well, apparently my tolerance is really high, and so but there was a moment where so when I was 21 I got sober, or 20 I got sober. Actually 21. So 21 I got sober. So my best friend had cancer and I was her caregiver. So and I was not a mature human at that point. Like all I cared about was partying, and I made good money selling stuff. And then I remember like learning that she got cancer. I got the phone call. I dropped to my knees, screamed as I'm staring at a cigarette because I was the bad kid, right? So I'm like, I don't understand. She's like the perfect kid and she has cancer, and then I'm the like fuck up and right? So the universe made no more sense at all. Yeah. And then I walked through with her as her caregiver with her mom for the next 3 years. And 2 years in, she wants to party with me. She gets jealous when I drink, so she gives me Oxycontin.
Gives you what?
Oxycontin.
What's that?
Painkillers that are really, really intensely like addicting, and they're like heroin.
High dose.
Yeah, it's like heroin. I mean, it's for cancer patients that can't.
Wow.
Right? So we're playing Yahtzee. We're getting high on Oxycontin. We're laughing our asses off. We're not in pain at this moment, which is nice. I'm not in emotional pain. She's not in physical pain, and Yahtzee's great. She goes to bed, and I like walk in, and I steal an Oxycontin from her, right? I could have just asked. It would be no big deal. She actually would have just said yes. But like some part of me was like sneaky and like taking the Oxycontin for later, Not even for that moment. And I get into a boat with her a little bit later, and I was like, hey, I stole your Oxycontin. Like, just one, but it was enough, And she's like, shit. And I go, and I've been drinking like crazy, doing stupid shit while drinking, and she just looks at me, and she's like, yeah, you need to call your intervention, call your entire family and tell them the truth now. And I'm like, what, now? And I thought like I was just going to tell her, we were going to talk. And like, she's like, no, bitch, like this is a big deal. Like, you are in a shit ton of mess. And I'm like, you know? So my ex-boyfriend, my parents, my sister, everybody there, because I had drank and cheated on my boyfriend. I was stealing Oxycontin. My best friend's dying. Da, 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 da. And I have to tell everyone all the shit I did. So I'm like sitting there just drooling, crying, going, so I convinced you that you should marry me while having a boyfriend, while stealing Oxycontin, while doing this, and I'm terrified, and I didn't use a condom, you know, and I'm just like, just streaming, and everybody just looks at me and they're like, we love you.
This is your whole family?
The whole family. The whole family. The ex-boyfriend, the boy, they're just like, we love you. You told the truth. That's what you needed to do. We fucking love you, you know? And there was this like huge lift weighted off my soul to be able to tell that deep of truth in that moment with an entire audience. And all they said was, I love you.
Yeah, and that's profound, because normally that level of, let's say, I would term it as the pain body trigger, right? That level of like playing with different emotions and lying and so on and so forth, often has the capacity to trigger that in the others, that then creates a whole heap of retaliation, blame, shaming, guilty, and so on. So that's super interesting that you got that response.
Yeah, the miracle of I have a whole family that was in AA. So the truth is their medicine.
Yeah, it's a value that they hold.
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up just, my dad, if I was upset, he's like, okay, what's the truth, you know? So that's where I grew up. I didn't even realize I had gotten so far away from it. You know, I was just kind of holding the burden of my best friend dying and not knowing what to do. And there was nothing I could do, right? And then, it's just a mess of being human.
Yeah.
So at that level of truth, at 20, I took a fearless moral inventory of all the bad shit that I did. You know, you go talk about it, you did it. So fast forward to 27, when this journey started, it was all of my suppressed trauma that I didn't even know needed to be told the truth about.
Beautiful.
You know?
Yeah.
And
you'd evolved on now, and you know that there's other layers that were playing out in your subconscious and in your behavior that you weren't aware of.
Yeah. And that's that hidden truth piece, right? That are constantly there. And like, when you're a kid, when you're a teenager, when you don't have the emotional intelligence or maturity to take care of yourself and make it safe, you just shove it. You suppress it, you run, you learn how to disassociate, all this stuff. And it came like a wave, like knocked me on my ass. And I did ayahuasca, and all of it came to the surface, basically. And I had not a very good integration or shaman to support me. So I'm like in
first time ayahuasca. And just for people listening, what was that decision? Did that, because we get told that it called you, but why was it?
Did not call me. Actually, I'm a risk taker. So I'm like sitting in the living room. My girlfriend's like, hey, you want to do this ayahuasca thing? It's supposed to be like some sacred thing. And I'm like, sure. I had no idea. Didn't research it. Didn't nothing. They tell me to do a dieta. I'm like, whatever that is, you know. I'm like, I literally nothing. And I get in there and I'm like, the entire pain of humanity is going through my system right now, and I'm crying. And everybody's thanking me, and like, you know, I'm seeing timelines. I'm dealing with like feeling like I'm giving birth to a demon. You know, like I have no idea what's going on, and nobody told me.
And I just want to say as well, just for anyone listening, because I know that ayahuasca comes up in a lot of conversations that I have and many others, this doesn't mean that this is going to happen to you if you do explore it. I just want to put that in there as a little bit, because this was your unique experience, and ayahuasca, you know, impacts us in all many different ways. But you seem to have got a nice wake up.
Yeah.
To say the least. But carry on.
And you know, they ask you to set an intention before, right?
Yeah.
And I said, show me who I am and set me free.
Wow.
So
you weren't messing around anyway.
No. And it takes me, you know, I'm at the integration of that first ayahuasca journey, you know, like.
Well, wait there, let's just give timeline. So you're saying you're finally going through that integration how many years after?
Like 7.
7 years after.
Yeah.
Because also this is a key point as well. You didn't really know what you was going into. 2, you didn't have any integration after to even process that.
Yeah.
So for the last 7 years, as that 7-year cycle, you've been literally processing and facing and integrating that experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Let's
was
take a breath in on that.
Yeah, it's a lot, you know. And like you said, just to be clear with everyone, everyone has different experiences. It was really funny because one of my girlfriends in that ceremony barely had an experience at all. And she was like, I'm really jealous. Like, you got it. And I sat there as a monk, you know. And I'm like, you're jealous of what? You know? And, but the gift of that moment, just to wrap it back into truth, is like everything that was suppressed could no longer be denied. But I didn't know it was my own suppression, that I was the ghost that I was taking on. So imagine everything that's suppressed being projected on everything around me, me trying to heal and make sense, and like all the characters kind of like showing up. Like it's almost like my suppressed ancestral, I'm talking like ancestral timelines, like old, reincarnations and this life. So they're just out there casting characters, and people are like, hi, okay, you want to heal this, you want to heal that, you want to, you know. And I'm at that point, I wasn't aware of our projection field or how trauma really wants to heal itself if you don't know how to be self-responsible for it. Right? And so everybody just is signing up to play the villain, the victim, the best friend, the adventure partner, whatever it was.
So all these shadows are playing out, exactly. And we're just seeing them come into our field. And if we don't have that awareness, we don't know what they're even coming in to show us that's inside of us.
Exactly. And how suppression works, you know. So I think that's, you know, really core to when you're doing shadow work or when you go into these peak experiences, knowing that you need integration and to be self-responsible, going, okay, I'm going to honor the healing and really get that nobody in this world around me is what I think they are, especially at this stage. Like I have to like take my projections back. Okay, you're triggering me. Okay, you're playing that character. Okay. And we release people from playing out the dark shadows too, which is really helpful because you get to be friends with more people.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not casting them, you know, as demons, as enemies.
Right. Right. And so that 7 years was really dealing with my suppression and getting truthful about it, and my own sexuality, getting truthful about how shadows work. That, you know, I always thought like shadow work was like, oh, my shadow. But the shadow is actually casting a shadow on others. That's what we're doing, and we have to be responsible for. You know, because like how many times have like you love someone and they saw you as something that wasn't real? We're like, why don't you see me? It's like the shadow's casting its role, you know? So getting responsible for that, and then getting responsible, the truth of my imagination. So being able to stop judging, stop being cynical, stop looking for what's not working, stop casting characters, you know, really clear this place out so I can hear and tell the truth and let my imagination serve a beautiful world, you know? And I think that's in the last 2 years, it was one of the harder ones to get rid of, because we feel really unsafe as we're doing our shadow work and like healing trauma, to not judge others, to not decide if they're safe or not, or whatever. And
to not release the stories that we've created as well, because they have given us some identity, they've given us safety, they've given us some power. Some people who communicate that they get power from being in that space, right? So all that has to die in order to even step beyond it.
Oh my God. Yes, it gives you a lot of power.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of power. There's a lot of energy.
Right.
I remember that phase of like, I could walk into a room, like I'm in my shadow, totally, and I could tell everybody what to do. And they would just do it. Stand up, turn around, dance, move, go this way. It was the strangest. I'm like, whoa.
Right. Well, not even a whoa, because let's be real. The dark forces, it's powerful energy. Even if we bring that and correlate it to the world, right? Why, you know, often people say, oh, why are these people so dark? Why are these people so, you know, aggressive? Why would they do that? But I mean, that's a great example, what you just described right there. Just to feel that level of power often is sometimes through trauma and through our life experiences easier to access than it is the power of love, the power of truth, right?
Yes.
Because you have to merge that other power into this, where love is more powerful, truth is more powerful, but it has a different taste, has a different resonance in the body, right?
You be humble.
Yeah.
And you honor life, and everything comes home.
Yeah.
And and you have to be totally responsible for every part of your experience and feel it. Like when I was going through my awakening in that power phase, we'll call it, I felt like if I opened my voice, I could kill the world with my rage, you know, and that was really hard to, you know, I was walking around and I was like, I could scream now and just kill everyone, you know, and like deal with that level of suppressed anger and like honor it, you know, and not make it about other people. And, you know, it took me a while because it's like so much energy,
Right.
you know.
Which is just to throw this in there, that a lot of people, when we invite them into emotional release or we invite them into their anger, so many have such a resistance because they sometimes, well, I've had direct experience where people have said, they don't think if they start crying and feeling what they want to feel, they don't think it will ever stop.
Yeah.
And the power is too immense to take on.
Yeah.
And they don't know if they can trust how they will act from wielding that power.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense.
Yeah. And in one way you can totally trust, and another way you can't. Like you can totally trust if you can tell the truth about it, and you can ask for support and quit being on your own. You cannot trust if you're not self-responsible and you make yourself disconnected. Because who you are when nobody's watching and when you're not responsible to them is
unpredictable.
And
dangerous.
Yeah. So, you know, dealing with that archetype was really, really fun and terrible. And to get past it. So this is like in a spiritual awakening, you know, the power piece, I think, is where a lot of people get stuck. And it looks like they're still, like they can talk the language. Like at that point, I could talk the language of love.
Or the language of, positivity, of light, if you want to call it.
Yeah, of light and of da-da-da. Meanwhile, I'm just in total shadow. You know, because if you don't have truth, it just all stays in the shadow anyways. And like, that's why, you know, us doing this in community actually really matters. Like one of the things that I had a hard time with my own awakening is like to tell the truth on your own it's almost impossible.
Right.
You know, but if we do it together, then we're getting the feedback.
Right.
And I can feel with you.
Right.
I can feel when I shared something off or what I did hit it or
totally. And you feel you have that collective mirror.
Yeah.
And you feel super supported and you know that you're all in this together.
Yeah.
And that's why community is so potent. I'm reading this beautiful book as well, talking about sexuality and going into the shadows of sexuality, which I know you're doing and have done. And if you don't have a supportive community, this is just their perspective, but it resonates with me, is you can't access love without fear if you don't create that incubator with each other.
Yes.
Because, you know, you're going out there in this way of sometimes expressing yourself and you don't have like you just said, the feedback loop or the right mirroring to really see it. What you know, you go into jealousy, you go into resentment, you go into blame, guilt, shame, all those start playing out. Whereas if you're in a beautiful community, it can reflect that to you in a nice, harmonious way, in a supportive way. You can be like, oh yeah, God, wow, yeah, I did just drop back there. Oh yeah, oh no, that pattern's playing out again. So yeah, it all makes sense. That's my favorite saying today. It makes sense. It makes
right?
sense.
I can feel it. I can feel it. Yeah, and I think the piece that you're touching on is even in community, it can become a distraction if everybody isn't willing to be self-responsible for their own coping mechanisms.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice caveat.
Yeah, and so I've been looking for people who will be self-responsible for their own coping mechanisms, not recognizing that's what I needed. You know, to be able to really tell the truth so we can get out of the trigger cycle, you know. Yeah. And even myself to be able to dismantle my own coping mechanisms, because when other people have their coping mechanisms and you're trying to get to truth, it triggers and then you go into yours and it's just
right. But
if we just all commit together, okay, we're going to be self-responsible, we're going to tell the truth, it's okay to make me uncomfortable, I'm okay to be uncomfortable.
Right. I'm not going to take it all personal.
Yeah.
I'm taking responsibility for my work, you know. If I do get something comes up for me, I know there's something for me to own and look at.
Yeah.
Own my shit fully.
Yeah.
And can express that. And you can support me while I'm owning my shit, but I'm not going to spit that on you because I know that that's something there for me.
Yeah.
And then actually what it sounds like is that invites the opportunity to not just be in a 24/7 process.
Yeah.
Where everyone's just processing constantly over and over again because actually they're not going inside and taking responsibility.
It's another form of distraction. Yeah.
Subtle, because that can seem like you're doing the work and you're going through the processing, right? Like I'm doing my work, but actually we're not really going into the wound or the wound. And me and Eric always talk about this, and we talk about this, the woundology, right? And Caroline Myss talks about this so beautifully. I don't know if you've heard of her, but you'd probably love this. But again, this idea that if somebody's getting a trigger into their wound, and that happens a number of times. I mean, she says if it happens 3 times that somebody keeps coming back to you with that same trigger and they haven't done it, there's this sense of like, well, I've been there for you and now that's yours. Yeah, it's like she says there's this cut-off point, where you have to have. Now, I know that can sound a little bit harsh or brutal if somebody's coming to you, because some people might need a little bit more, but there does have to be this sense of, hey, this is really yours, it's come up for you, and now you've got to take responsibility to look at it and heal it.
Well, that's the other part of the truth that we kind of talked about at the beginning. Can we send it back? Right? That's your doubt. That's not my doubt. That's your thing, not my thing.
Right.
I'm very clear that that's not my thing. I looked every time you came. I did the inquiry. Definitely not my thing.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But I love you and I honor you, so I'm going to look.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Which happened to me on an email, actually, a while back. I made a comment on somebody's post on Facebook, and I thought it was a genuine inquiry. But there was a little charge underneath, because I was really challenged by the level of communication happening on this thread, or this group. And from a space where the person that's holding this group is really advocating this sense of like, authenticity and communication, and it just felt like everyone was attacking each other. That's how I interpreted it. So I made a comment on that, and the comment was received as I was attacking. Irony, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm feeling that everyone's attacking, and in my comment, I thought was coming from like, hey, a genuine inquiry. Like, do you really want this? Is this what you want in this group? I was seen as being condescending, rude, arrogant, thinking that who am I to come in and start saying that, and who am I to decide what they should be doing in their group? So I was like, and then at first I was like, the fuck? How's that come fall back to me? And then I checked out. I communicated directly with the person on whose group it was, and they came back on some email and thread, and there was some stuff for me, right?
Yeah.
But not all of it was mine.
Not all of it.
Right, and I took on board what was mine, and how I can be more check in with myself before with that charge, and like, where was my anger? And I did have some anger in there that was true, right? So that was there, but there was some other things that were just like, well, no, that's just not mine. And I think this is the clear point.
Yeah.
And it brought some tears to me. I was able to process a little bit of emotion, and it was rich. It was
right?
a great,
It's super rich.
It was a great encounter, and I'm super thankful for it. But it is maturing enough to have the discernment to know what is mine and what is not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah. And for me, I'm over responsible. Everything's mine was one of my coping mechanisms from when I was a kid. So like to learn how to discern and go, no, that's actually you.
Yeah.
And to be okay with saying, no, that's actually you.
Yeah.
Nope, that's actually you.
Yeah. Which takes time, right?
Yeah.
I want to just say that takes practice as well, because we're not so good as humans. I know this might sound slightly generalizing, but we're not so good at saying a clear no and a clear yes, right? And that sense of taking full responsibility, which is one of the sort of values that I have. I want to take full responsibility, but there has to be a point of real clear boundaries as well to that, right? Because somebody can continue to just keep prodding you, right? Or whatever it is, they might just putting it on, and there has to be a point where you go, hey, this is a boundary line now.
Yeah.
I love the wheel of consent for that. It's like, this is like, if we don't have a boundary now, and I don't communicate my clear yes and no, we're going to go into Shadowland even more.
Right.
We're going to both go there.
Which is no fun.
Yeah.
And I think the other really interesting part is the yes, no, like a fuck yes, a fuck no. Super important, right? And then the ability to basically not be a martyr. Like, self-responsibility can become a martyr. It's my job to heal the whole planet, and it's all up to me. Mm-hmm. And there's like some megalomania that becomes like, oh, and my God, right. Like it can actually go into its own shadow.
Right.
That is just really weird, and it can get super destructive and undermining of our own humanity. And funny enough, it undermines the confidence in the other person. When I think I have to be responsible for all their stuff, I'm actually not trusting them to deal with it.
Yeah, that's a really important part. I'm seeing all these at the moment. I just want to drop in for a moment, because there's so many subtle layers there, right? Maybe for people listening, they'll be like, forget that shadow work. It seems too complex. But I want to bring something in there for those listening, is that it's actually not so complex when you're really willing to tune into what's happening inside,
Yeah.
right? Whether that be through journaling, meditation, silent time, to really look inward. I always say that when we open the eyes, we're often outside, the projections are going wild. But when I close my eyes, I can truly see.
Yeah.
Because what I'm really wanting to see is what's happening inside of me. That's why I sit in meditation. I want to know, like, oh my God, today, look what's going on inside of me. Wow, no wonder I'm distracted or procrastinating or, you know, or responding like I am to Dara or whatever it might be, you know.
Yeah.
Look, wow, look what's going on. Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, that's I just wanted to put that out there for people again, that that's the way that I really get to tune in to that part that you described earlier of like what's really true in here for me today.
Yeah. And I think I feel, right, the simple part is actually you got to love yourself. If you're anywhere in the distraction field of too far out, too far in, too far this way, too far that way, you most likely haven't spent enough time loving yourself. Because when you love yourself, you're in your body.
Right.
And then once you're in your body, it's kind of like, oh, you're like, your friend says those things like, you're hurting, you know, and I was angry. Okay. It becomes very simple. But if like we haven't spent time loving ourselves, then we're trying to fix everything. We're trying to get energy from something or not from this thing.
Right.
Negotiate feeling safe. Like it gets very complex.
Right. And I want you to stay there because I think it's a great point. So let's talk a little bit about like what does it mean for you to love yourself? And the reason why I want to bring that up is I know that sometimes people are super offended by, oh, just love yourself, it's going to be okay. I know the journey of self-love and I know how potent it is and what it brings, and its riches are just you know, boundless. But like, and I like what you just described there. One is that owning what's going on inside. But what else, you know?
So loving yourself at the core, the first step is accepting yourself.
Right.
Yeah. And that's everything you've ever done.
Right.
Everything that's ever been done to you.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yes.
And so that's like the step one.
Yeah.
And even me, I'm like daily, like because of uncorking the stuff in the DNA and stuff.
I like that, uncorking.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, there's a new thing to love. This part of my sexuality or this thing I did. I'm like, wow, I really told a different story about that when, you know, and so like even just recently I did you know, like in AA, you do a fearless moral inventory of all the bad things that you've done to people, right?
That's one of the stages.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you make apologies. Well, I did a fearless moral inventory of my sexuality and all the bad things I've done to me and other people.
Beautiful.
Right? And that was like, okay, I can accept that. Okay, I can accept that.
That's a great exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope everybody listening, that's a really powerful exercise to do. Yeah, because at the core, you know, one of the hardest places to accept ourselves is our sexuality, right?
Yeah.
And especially what I call a sexual center, because I see myself as one big genital. You know this, right? So most people, I still love saying that. Most people think Simon is a dick. He thinks himself as to be a genital.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you start to really integrate the wholeness of your lingam, your sexual center, that's how you get wholeness.
Yeah.
And that is actually sometimes the last point that it comes to, where people can truly accept themselves.
Yeah.
What they have hidden in their pants.
Yeah.
Hiding it all the time down here.
Yeah.
Until you open that up and let that, whatever wants to flow from there, you know, we find it difficult to love ourselves truly. But go on, please continue.
Yeah, no, it's just like so core. And even for me, it was the hardest place, you know. Like we kind of had this conversation yesterday. I like had hypersexuality since I was a kid, not understanding why. You know, now I know why. Like I was like, oh, my dad stopped touching me when I was a kid, and then it made me feel like I wasn't good enough. And then all of a sudden, I needed that energy, so I had to like be sexual. The only thing that you see on TV and through your parents is sexuality. Okay, hypersexuality wakes up. Then you have anorexia because your father wants you to stay a little kid. You know, it's just like the whole mess happens. Yeah.
And I want to just jump in here because I'm so happy that you bring that up, because the path that I've been on around this whole thing of speaking truth has led to the sexuality, and loving ourselves led to the sexuality. And it's beautiful that you're bringing it up, because how you just described that connection to the loss, I'm going to call it the loss of the love of your father.
Yeah.
So often the girl is constantly seeking that love of the father, and the boy is seeking that love of the mother. And through that idea of of not finding that love, we go out seeking it in all these many distorted ways, and this disconnection from the big love, right? Which causes so much of the sexual violence, so much of the inadequacies, so much of the, premature ejaculation, so much of, we're actually seeking, if anybody's listening that knows about the imago match and this idea that we're actually seeking our parents in our relationships.
Yeah.
And then when you look at it from that perspective, like, wow, I'm coming into this relationship to heal the wounds of my past. That changes everything, not just trying to get something from you or trying to have sex or trying to build a life together and have children. No, we're coming together to actually heal and reconnect to the love that we lost from our parents.
Yes.
Boom.
So good. And our relationships mature when we stop needing them to fulfill the role of our parents, but get that we're just healing what happened with our parents. Right?
Beautiful.
And then we can start sharing love instead of taking love. And then there's a fusion that opens up and more love, like that self-love practice of accepting yourself to give yourself love, to receive love also opens up, finally I can love you without trying to manipulate you into like playing the role or getting the thing or da-da-da-da. And when I'm feeling needy, I just like, oh God, I'm needy. Okay, let's love that. I'm being needy. Is it a real need? Is it something I haven't been talking about? Is it, the wound? What is it? And like, it starts to open up a whole new level of relationship that I think we all have been craving.
Right.
Because we know in our hearts that it's possible to have healed love.
Right.
Yeah.
And we know in our hearts that tingles. What did I say earlier about the tingles of truth? And we know that this free love, we've had a direct experience of it, even if it was in the womb, right? We've had a direct experience that we are able to freely love. We are able to love everyone, everything that we see. We can open to that, and we're not going to get hurt from that. And we don't need anything back from anybody to love them in that way. I mean, that for me is the part of the ultimate exploration of this sort of almost whatever you want to call it, journey back home as some call it, or journey back to self, or just this dive into unconditional love, right? That's really is when we start to tap into the unconditional.
Yes.
Beyond the conditions. That's where we're in that neutral, open space of like, I just love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love myself, and all is well. And everything, like you said, I've done is accepted. You're accepted. However you want to be is accepted. Wow. Coming from a foundation of that space, can you see how parenting changes, how relating changes across the field? And it has done for us. I know it is now. And with the communities that we're a part of, that is starting to show itself. That's presenting itself. The way we communicate, the way it's more inclusive, the way we take responsibility, the way there's less violent communication, and so on and so forth. Wow.
The way we can relax.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I think there's two things there's many things that human beings need, but they need to connect, create, and be free. Right? So connection is that love piece, the feeling together, feeling in unity with all of us, right? They need to create, they need to be themselves and actually give what they're here to give. And they need to be free, right? And that freedom only comes from actually total acceptance and stop needing other people to fulfill upon something or manipulating other people, because in order to feel safe or get the love, we've started to enslave each other, right? If you love me, you will do this. Right. It's like that's the oldest phrase, right?
Exactly.
But we hold it inside. So we do the thing and we try to get the love and and people can feel that, right? Yeah. But we can also feel it like our own little prison that we've created, because I have to be this way to get the love because that's the agreement I made in my head, and then da-da-da.
Yeah.
And now there's this opportunity as we're, I think we're hitting like a tipping point with our collective. Especially our tribes that are connected have done enough work to be self-responsible and stopped outsourcing their need of love to others, but getting how important it is that we love others and are connected. Like that switch in orientation, is actually opening up freedom. Like we're truly becoming free, which means we're truly becoming capable of creating and sharing what we're here to share. We're truly becoming capable of connecting and loving when we reverse the orientation. And so I think that's the the gift of, you know, doing the shadow work and becoming self-responsible, and also to stop looking to fixing others and judging others and like ripping them apart or being cynical. Like actually look, like see and go, wow, I just want to see you in the world. You know, that's a totally different orientation. Not, oh, you could just get a little better, you know.
Right.
Or, you know, this thing, if you just said it in this way, I could really receive you. I don't know how many times I heard that in the spiritual community. Like, if you can just talk to me in this way, then I'll receive you. And it's like, even stepping back more, we get to just go into, oh, I fucking love you, you know? Like, you get to be you. Oh, I get to be me. And whatever's coming through, it's not personal. Like, if it hurts, it's not personal. If it hurts, I get to heal something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's something there for me that I will take full responsibility for. Yeah. And then I love this this sense of I love you as you are, and in that moment that we share that, all the other stuff that has been wanting to play out, like you said, this manipulating or even somebody trying to say this or that actually can't stick.
Yeah.
It falls away.
Yeah.
It's like a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to get people to change or fix them or give advice and guidance, it's like, I love you as you are.
Yeah.
I give you permission to be who you are, which then allows the other person and ourselves to go, oh, how am I? Yeah. How am I?
How am I?
I would like to express like this. It's like, wow, great. So be it.
Yeah.
And so it's almost not a bypass, but it feels like a sort of a quite a direct hack into, you know, the deeper acceptance of who you are, because love only accepts. Love is inclusive.
Yeah.
Love isn't exclusive. It does. In fact, we humans, the psyche of humans have told what love does, right? You notice that love will do this, this, and this, and love does that, and that. No, love actually is neutral. I see love as like, love just loves.
Yeah.
What does it do? It doesn't say, I love you because you're yellow and I don't love you because you've been eating too much and you are really horrible. It just loves you, which is the example that you got from your family and the example I got from my mother and many others through my own journey of doing what some people would call bad, harmful, wrong, and so on.
Yeah.
It's like when I could love it, even more were able to just accept that was my unique journey.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, and what a gift that we give each other when we love ourselves and we see each other as capable, right? Like we don't see each other as the trigger or the thing, but instead we're like, oh, I see you. I love you. And you got this. That's the wave moving through, you know? But we, like often it's like we try to grab onto it. Here's the shadow, here's the trigger. Let me show it to you, you know? And it's like, no. Or somebody shares their dream and let me tell you what's wrong with it and why it's not working. And that's very valuable, right? And it's like, no, it's not really valuable at all, actually. Like what I need is for you to see it and to give your belief to it and give your love to it. And I think most people give their opinions or give their negotiations or give their agreements and like all these other things that are, because love is neutral, right? Love is just like, oh yeah.
Right.
I believe in that. Like I'll give love to that. So often people will share their dream with me or share, and I was like, yeah, I give love to that.
Yeah, right. I like that. I give love to that.
Yeah.
That can be a little term from our conversation today. Yeah, I give love to that. You know, I often have this question of what would love do now? And in any situation, I ask, what would love do now? If I'm in closure, if there's a friction, what would love do now? And that's a challenging question at times because it requires your ego to have to die to get out of the way, the pain or whatever else you're trying to manipulate, like you described. And it's like, no, what would love do now? And love will always give. It will always open. It will always accept. And again, I'm telling what love would do, but it's just because that's the experience of what I've felt from love. And these words really don't do it justice because love just is. It just loves. And I feel that we sometimes along the way, we've really sort of tried to bracket in and define what is and what isn't love. And love just is. It isn't or isn't. It is or isn't not anything, right?
Yeah.
And I think that even brings in a deeper level of acceptance when we can allow that in, right? Like, wow. Yeah. Nice.
I was just thinking about love is neutral, love, and it shows up in mirror out because love might be one day going, no. Love might be the next day going, yes. I give love to that. Or saying, you need to be with that. you know,
Yeah.
and my heart's open, but it's you need to be with that.
Mm.
You know, I was like thinking about when I applied for art school and I couldn't get in. I didn't have enough money. The loan, art school is really expensive, and they want your parents to like do their tax thing and see if, and then their parents sign for a loan because you're young, right? And I go home to my dad and I'm like, Dad, I got into art school. I'm so, I'm so excited. And I was so excited because before that, I didn't even want to go to school. I was like a dropout party kid running shit, And my dad's like, no. And I was like, what? He's like, no, I'm not. Like, that's against my values. Like, Dad, no. Like, you know me. And I was like, but Dad, like, I tested off the score and I'm like wanting to go to school. He's like, you'll figure it out. Like, I love you. I believe in you. You'll figure it out. This is not the way. And so love in that moment was loving himself and his knowing that carrying debt was not real for him, and that he knew that I would figure it out, And so I ended up putting on a fashion show, making 60 dresses in 30 days, raising my college tuition and going to school, right? And my dad was there, and he went and bought dresses for people, he supported a little bit, a lot, but it was different, like it was in alignment with his own values. I got support from my community. I built confidence. I came over an obstacle, but in that moment, love was a no. And I remember just being so pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, like, I think that's the beautiful part. Love is neutral. It's not about the action. It's not about the word. It's about the energy. Is it really the most loving thing to do? If I give you this, am I undermining who you are, or am I undermining myself? If I give you this,
Yeah.
it's like...
And if we trust that each individual is welcome to their decision on that, that's another thing that we can just learn to accept, although we don't always accept, because we want other people to do as we want them to do, because most of the time life revolves around us, right? It's like, no, you need to help me right now, as opposed to not realizing that the divine design may be that this is the greatest help you can get right now, which turned out for you.
Yeah.
Well, we could go so many places now. Yeah, I'm aware that I know that we have to come to a sort of close. Yeah. I'm aware of that, just based on where we've gone. But I'm also like, I have so many things popping around where we could go, but at the same time not wanting to, force that or lead that. And just to check in with you, how are you feeling in this moment, and what feels like what wants to come through you in a way of sort of bringing this
to a close.
Yeah, well, nothing closes, right?
Yeah, but
to a continuation of another conversation.
Yeah, I think my heart got really soft talking about my dad.
Yeah.
Like, I just love my dad so much. And I love his dedication to truth and really being himself. Like, he's been such a great role model for me. I have two dads, by the way, a stepdad and a real dad. The stepdad is the one that my childhood trauma is attached to. And then I had the weekend dad, which was my real dad, so I had this split reality that I was in, which is why I am such an interesting concoction. But my real dad, who I was just speaking about, feels, like I just want to channel the essence of him, which is, let's be ourselves and honor ourselves and be loving, and always do our best to show up for each other if we can. Like, that's really what love is. It's like, it's neither denying nor taking care of it for everyone. It's neither, it's like that middle path. And when you have it with truth, when you have love and truth and you're walking them together, that's where the magic opens up, because we never undermine each other, nor do we acquiesce, nor do we cater to the shadow, nor do we, resist hugging someone. We don't punish them. We don't, nothing is over extreme. It's just like, what is the most aligned, truthful, loving energy for the person and for myself in this moment, when we actually can hold the more omnipresent space and trust that whatever is the most loving, truthful thing in that moment is the thing to do, Yeah.
Yeah, and also I don't separate them myself.
Yeah.
I can't, there's this sense of, I can never separate these two things. And on some level that leads us in beautifully to that nothing I see is separate.
Yeah.
It feels to me that whenever we separate ourselves, that's the fall from love and truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the minute we think that, okay, I'm in this story of separation, it's me against the world, I have to, you know, what's that saying? Very, you know, what is it? Like a dog eat dog style, you know, it's like got to be the best, the one, got to compete with everybody, you know, strive for greatness, and a lot of the times that requires this sense of that it's me against the world, and I've got to like either step on people or be better than people or beat people. And when you realize that you're not separate, and the sort of filters that have created that idea of separation really start to fall away as another facade, as another mask, as another filter drops away, then you open up to the magic and wonder and the innocence and the playfulness that we spoke about earlier, and the art and the full expression and the desire to serve and help, because you know that when you're serving the whole, and when you're serving the whole, you're interconnected to that whole thing, and you know that, wow, what else is there to be other than, you know, that wholeness, right? And one of the talks I had recently with Philip Shepherd brought this back so beautifully from his book Radical Wholeness, and that was like this, and I'm buzzing at the moment because we sort of linked to that with the sexuality, linking that in. We become whole beings, we accept ourselves fully, we become whole, and in that acceptance we connect to the whole, and all of a sudden there is just this one whole. One hole, which isn't a hole, although a hole that you could fall into the void of nothingness.
It's one hole, wholeness, everlasting wholeness, a vortex, a portal. Oh my goodness.
Nice.
Amazing.
How are you feeling?
Soft, appreciative, you know. I just am really extremely grateful for my life. You know, I've encountered so much challenge and so much trauma, but also I've had such great love in my life, such great truth that's like almost like built me to be confident and be able to actually integrate those experiences and to come back stronger and more loving, more caring, more myself. And so, you know, just in this moment, I'm like thinking of my dad going, man, I just love you and so grateful, and I'm grateful for this conversation.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you, and I appreciate that we've also come into that gratitude to just to be grateful for our parents and all those that have walked before us, and have, everything's had to happen exactly how it happened for us to be sat here right now. And we can just see the divine design and all of that, and the acceptance and all of that. And as you're connecting to your father, I'm connected to my father, and he's no longer here. And to, you know, to him, I mean, he left when I was very young, but just to, you know, to know that he did the best he could to even bring me here, you know, and the stepfather that I had, you know, we have a lot of similarities, you and I. And, you know, and for everyone listening, you know, Morgan is really going to also, and Modestus is going to team up with us in really collaborating to create a much more, how we describe it, supportive community, prosperous community, you know, where we really, you know, share our gifts and show up from that place of really giving, you know, giving from a place of unconditional love, giving from a place of sincerity and playfulness and love, and just see what births out of that, right? And how we can really nurture those that just require a little bit of support and a reminder that they are already it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I know we did miss, like, I always keep thinking of your Kung Fu times and the stories you told, but we will have more conversations.
Yeah, totally. I have a lot. I mean,
we don't need to get it all in. And you've just started a little podcast yourself. You'll be talking about truth and your experiences in relationship. So we can share that with others as well. And yeah, we're going to have more conversations.
Totally.
Everything is perfect.
Everything is perfect. Yay.
Thank you so much. Hug?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for showing up.
Oh, so happy. It's perfect.
So there you go, everyone. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Thank you to my beautiful brother for filming us and being there to support us. Thank you for Morgan. Thank you for everyone in this beautiful house that have allowed us to use this space today. And thank you for tuning in. I hope this has been beneficial. Let us know if it has. And remember, you are worth loving. Mwah.
This is our time to rise.